Hey, what's going on guys? Core Edge Designs here and welcome to another 3D Studio Max tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this image from scratch, and as you can see from the title of the video and the video thumbnail that I'll be putting up. So we're going to be learning how to create this from scratch. Now we're going to be using Photoshop and 3D Studio Max to actually create this effect, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is my portfolio, as you can see from here, and I'd really like it if you guys visited. I have some of my models here that I'm not going to be publicizing right now. So what we did here basically was, this is a very simple scene. It's just got a floor and a light above it, and it surprisingly looks good. I have no idea why, but yeah, it works for me. So one more thing is these light trail that you see, they're created in Photoshop, of course. I mean, you can do it in 3D Studio Max, but it'd be really tiresome, and it's much easier using the Liquify tool in Photoshop. So we're going to be learning how to do this from scratch, excluding the modeling and the materializing, because that is one hell of a job to accomplish. So as you can see in front of you, I have my Aventador model that I've completed over the time, and I've also modeled the engine, if you can see there. Okay, enough blabbering. One tip that I would like to give you guys is, whenever you create a car that has fancy rims like this Aventador, which surely has fancy rims, what I usually do is, I'm just gonna open up the group here. Group opened. Okay. So what I do usually is I create these kind of fancy looking stripes all over the wheel, so that and the reason I do it is so that you can actually have a look at the actual geometry of the wheel. So if you remember, I did the same thing with the McLaren MP4 model, and I'm doing the same thing with this. Now the reason I did this is because, as you can see, these highlight the wheel shapes and it looks really cool. And if I hadn't done this, actually, the wheels would have looked really dark, and the entire image would have looked really dark, in fact. So that was the reason I did that. Okay, so that's a little tip for you guys that you can use in your car models. So let's go ahead and close everything up. And as you can see, I've grouped the entire car into a group, so that just makes it easier to move around and stuff, which we're gonna be doing a lot. So yeah, let's get started. So one more tip, of course, free tips these are. Try to make it, if you're modeling a supercar, try not to make your lights white, because that's not the color they usually are. Supercar lights are actually bluish in color. So if you have, I'd show you. It doesn't highlight here, but in here you can see it actually looks white, but a little bit of bluish tinges there, and it makes it look a lot more realistic than it looks. So that's another tip for you guys. Okay, enough blabbering on my part. Let's go ahead and start compositing that scene here. So first thing you're gonna do is you wanna go ahead and look for a good posture to pose your car on. So you can choose any pose that you want. You could use this pose or this one, or even something low like this, or even the back. It doesn't really matter. It's really your choice. But it's really your choice. So I'm just gonna go ahead with my choice and create a perfectly left view. And the way I did that is with hit L to bring up my orthographic camera, and then I hit P to bring up my perspective view, so I can view the car a lot nicely, a lot better actually. And let's go ahead and place it somewhere here. It looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and freeze this view here. And the way we do this is, of course, using a V-Ray camera, or just a camera at least. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead into my camera panel. I'm gonna go ahead and hit V-Ray here, and I'm gonna hit V-Ray physical camera, and just go ahead and go into any viewport here and create a camera. Just make sure you can make the camera anywhere, but make sure the dot that you see here, that is following my cursor, make sure you put it at the center of the car. And that's just some recommendation, because when you orbit the camera around and it's somewhere here, the car doesn't rotate that well, and it just looks sloppy, and it's actually much more difficult to work with. And by center, I don't mean the exact center, but somewhere in the center, somewhere roughly. As you can see, that's really rough. So that's just a tip actually. So one more thing that you have to do actually is select the viewer physical camera and go to your perspective view, or wherever you have the view saved. Hit Control C, and what that's going to do is, align the camera according to that view over here. So now the camera is looking directly at the car, and now we can hit C here to actually have a look at what the camera is looking. So this is usually the way I like to work. This is my perspective view. I like to move around the car a lot here, And I like to have my view fixed here so that I can work with it easier. Okay, so next up, what we're going to do is go ahead and create a plane for this car to rest on. And the way we're going to be doing this is by creating a plane geometry, of course. Of course, we're not going to be using a plane to create this. Instead, we're going to be using a V-Ray plane to create this. Okay, go ahead and make a V-Ray plane on the top view. And then using the front view, I'm just going to position this to make the car rest on it. Okay, so the reason we're not using a simple plane and we're using a V-Ray plane here is because V-Ray plane has a unique property to it. What it can do actually is, you know, extend for the entire horizon, and, you know, without adjusting the size of this. And what I mean by that actually is it's going to be clear once we create some lights, and I'll show you render, and you'll get to know what I'm talking about. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and create some lights. Actually, there's only one light here, and we're going to be using the top view to create it. And we're going to be making it exactly the size of the car, actually a little bit larger than that, and that size looks good. Okay, and we're going to be going ahead and moving it up here somewhere really up here. Okay, that looks good here. Okay, so that's that. Alright, let's go ahead and show you what the V-Ray plane does. So let's go ahead and hide the car for now. It's gonna speed up the render actually. And if we hit render right now, what you can see is this thing here. So what this does actually is makes the plane cover the entire horizon. So this plane actually ends right here, and it makes for a really good reason to make your floor. If you had gone the traditional way and created a plane here, you know, something like that, the same size as this, I'm going to hide the V-Ray plane here and then hit render. You're going to see that the plane is only visible for some point, and in order to make this look more like a floor, you had to actually increase the size of this thing and do all sorts of things. But the V-Ray plane just makes everything a lot easier, and, you know, everything is automated. So let's go ahead and hide this for now, and as you can see, the plane is done. So also you can notice that almost pretty much the lighting is also done, because there wasn't any lighting in that. Just an overhead light there. So let's go ahead and start to composite this. So I'm gonna hit M to bring up my material editor, and I'm gonna show you guys some of the material that I used, and they're actually pretty simple ones. This is the material for the ground. By the way, we need this. So the way we do this is just go ahead and create a V-Ray material if my computer doesn't freeze up. Okay, so go ahead and create a V-Ray material, and for the diffuse color, I'm gonna make it really dark, something like 2 and 2 and 2. I entered them here, 2 and 2 and 2. It's gonna be really dark, but not exactly black. We don't want anything in our scene to be exactly black, because perfectly black objects do not exist. So that's how we're gonna be doing this. It's gonna be 2 2 2, and actually we can make it a little bit lighter. It'll be 5 5 5. It doesn't look that much brighter, but trust me, just this little thing will influence the render. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply it to the V-Ray plane, and I'm gonna hide the car to make it easier to render, and I'm gonna render this out. So as you can see, it's all dark here, and the reason that's happening is not because of the light, it's actually because of the exposure settings of a camera. So we're gonna go ahead into a camera view, go into modify tab, and we're gonna be adjusting some settings over here. First off, let's go ahead and drop down the f number from 8.0 to 5.6. This is like a exposure control. The higher this number is, the darker your image is going to turn out. So a lower f number is kind of implied to is the same as lower exposure, and it's going to make things look brighter. So for vignetting, I don't like to do this, but we're going to make it something small, like 0.4 or something. One more thing that I like to do is change the white balance to neutral, or you could actually change this to white, doesn't really matter which way you do it. And that's actually pretty much the settings I use for most of my renders nowadays, and render this out. Okay, so this is still dark, and I guess that's happening because our light is probably too faint. Let's go ahead and increase the multiplier up to 100 maybe. Let's go and try to render this out. Okay, looking kind of good. One more thing that you can do to make life easier for you is go into a render setup here, and go ahead and select the plane that you want to render always. This is the V-Ray physical camera view in my case, and hit the lock here, and that's gonna allow you to render this every time. What I mean by that is if you have it unlocked and you accidentally click on the top view and then hit render, V-Ray is actually going to be rendering the top view for you. This is not good. We want the plane to render always, so let's go ahead and lock this here. Okay, and also I'm going to lower down the size of this to 800 by 450, make it smoother. Okay, now if I go ahead and click on this plane and hit render, V-Ray is still going to render out this V-Ray physical camera, which is pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and start to speed things up now. What we're gonna do is make this a little bit down on the downside actually. Let's finally unhide our car. That's looking good. Let's go ahead and try to render this out, see how it looks right now. And I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna return when it's done. Okay, so it just finished rendering here, and as you can see, this is looking pretty good already. Okay, one question that I get a lot is how do your car look so realistic? Well, I'm not gonna lie, if you do everything exactly as me, you're still probably not gonna get exactly the same results. And the reason that happens is because of the materials that your car has. So it's important for a car to have good materials with good reflections, as you can see here. So as you can see, I've not even turned on GI, and it's already looking pretty good to me. And the reason I get this is because materials that I use are really detailed. As you can see, this is the orange color actually, and we have two layers on this actually. One is the base material, which is actually only the color and some of the reflections, and the second one is actually the second layer on top of it with just pure white reflections. And the way this works is because if we go ahead into base material, we can see that I have a red diffuse, kind of red diffuse, and an orange reflection. So the paint is actually red, it just reflects orange, and it looks really cool. And the reason I did this is because that's how it's done in real Lambos. So why not? Then the top material, as I said, is only the white reflection and a diffuse, of course, here. So this way, these settings work pretty good on cars. Some cars might not work on yours, and yeah, that's pretty much my secret. Okay, so yeah, that's looking pretty good. One thing that I did notice was I need to make this light invisible. So let's go ahead here, go ahead and take invisible here, and let's go ahead and try to render out the scene perfectly now. So be sure that I did not make this as simply as I did in the tutorial. Like just one or two renders and my thing is done. I actually worked on this quite a lot, and it took me around an entire day to composite the shot, to think of it and all. So there's nothing such as an instant coffee. So I mean that is, but you know what I'm getting at. You cannot get a simply cool render in just 2 minutes. And the reason I'm showing this to you guys is I wanna spread and share my knowledge with you guys. Okay, enough philosophy. Let's go ahead and start to set up a render. So first thing is let's leave this at 100 by 450 for now for testing purposes. And we go into V-Ray tab here, and we're going to be turning off the default lights with GI off it. In fact, we're just going to turn it off here, off, and uncheck hidden lights. For anti-aliasing, I'm going to be using adaptive DMC here, and for the anti-aliasing filter, we could use any filter that you want. It actually depends on what kind of results you're after. But in my case, I tried to use an area filter, and it just turns out really jagged on the reels, on the dark places actually. So I'm gonna be changing that later, but I'm just gonna showing you guys what effect it has. Moving on to color mapping, I'm gonna change that from linear multiply to exponential. That's gonna give us a lot more contrast. Okay, moving on to indirect illumination, probably the most important tab. I'm gonna turn it on and turn on ambient occlusion. And I'm just going to leave the ambient occlusion at the default values. They work pretty good for me in all times. For the second GI engine, I'm going to use light cache, pretty standard. For irradiance map, currently set is going to be low, just for testing purposes. But we're going to be cranking that up. We're going to hit 60 here and 30 here. Let's keep everything at the same thing. We're going to take show calculation phase, move down to light cache, and looks pretty good. Show calculation phase. And that's it. Go to settings, turn down its threshold value, and then allow it to use more of my RAM by hitting 4000 here. And that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and hit render, see how it looks. Of course, I'm gonna pause the video here and I'll return when it's done. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you guys one thing. You need to change the settings of the V-Ray plane to some extent here. Okay, so we're just gonna right click this, hit V-Ray properties, and I'm gonna turn this into a matte object. Alpha contribution is gonna be -1 so that it doesn't affect the alpha. And I'm gonna be turning on shadows and affect alpha. And then I'm gonna turn all of this down to 0. Okay. That's gonna allow it to cast shadow to receive shadows, and I noticed that because I didn't get any shadows in my previous renders. Let's go ahead and try to render this out once again, and I'll meet you guys later. Okay, so something that I can already see is that the bottom of this car is looking really dark, and I don't want that look. I mean, some of you guys might want that, but I don't want that. I want the entire car to be visible. So what I'm going to do is kind of move this light down here, maybe, and lower down the multiplier of this to something like, I don't know, 50 maybe, and then try to re-render this. Okay, so this is the render that we're getting right now. Of course, this is not the V-Ray ADV render, V-Ray Advanced renderer. This is the V-Ray RT renderer. This is a real-time rendering engine. If you guys didn't know, so we can actually go ahead and look at this and make changes to this a lot better. I decided to go against the main renderer. So that is looking pretty good now, and I think we are ready to finally render this out. So the way we do this is pretty simple actually. Let's go ahead and open up our V-Ray settings dialog box. Go into V-Ray. I don't think we need to do anything here. Let's change this from area to Mitchell Nature Valley and change the blur amount to 0 here. Go to indirect illumination and move down, change the current preset from low to high. Move down and increase the number of subdivisions in the light cache to 1500. And I guess that's it. So all you need to do now is hit render here, and it's going to work out. Of course, I'm not going to be rendering that because for my personal sluggish little computer, it took 22 minutes to render up that single frame. So I'm not going to be rendering that, of course. But I have the raw file, so I'm going to be showing you guys what it finally looks like. So I'll meet you in some time. Okay, so let's just assume this was my final render, which is not. This is just the light cache actually. So assuming this is our final render, what you want to do is hit save here, and you want to go ahead and save it in here, but save it as whatever name you want actually. I don't know, tutorial maybe, but make sure you save as type, change from all formats to OpenEXR file. And what that allows us to do actually is get a lot more detail into the scene that we expect. So just hit save here, make sure you change the type from RGB to RGB alpha, and just hit OK here, and it's going to save the file for you. So let's go ahead and switch to Photoshop now, and hit Control O to open up our file, and we're going to be very quickly loading that up. What's it called again? Yeah, TUT here. Let's go ahead and open that up. Just select as transparency, hit OK, and just wait for it to load up. Okay, so there it is loaded up. Don't worry, I'm not going to be continuing the tutorial on this thing, but just to show you guys, what we're going to do is go ahead and create a new layer in the background, and I'm going to alt backspace, fill it with black so that we're back at where we started. Then we're going to go into image mode and change that from 32 bits to 16 bits. Change don't merge here, and the reason we did this is because 3ds Max exports EXR as 32-bit images, which you cannot save as JPEGs. Actually, you can save it as JPEGs, but you get a lot less things to work with. I mean, curves does not work with 32 bits and so on. We have a lot of limitations here. So once you are here and you've converted it to a 16 bits, now we can continue with my actual render. So just a second till I open it up. Okay, so there we have our render here, and what we're going to do basically here is add a curves adjustment over here if you want to. I want to, maybe you might not. So I just want to make a little more contrast to this image, something like that. It's looking pretty good, and that's going to be pretty much it for retouching in Photoshop actually. I like my render a lot from 3D Studio Max. I don't want to mess with it too much, so I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast. That's what I like to do, and I'm going to leave it at that. So let's go ahead and start to make up those weird looking lines here, and they're actually pretty simple to create. So we're going to grab our brush tool here, oops, and we're going to create a new layer on top of this, on top of the curves, and whoa, Just go ahead and hit X to swap your colors, or you can just choose white on the front color. Just try to make something here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to reduce the size of this. This is too thick. I want to do something like 2 maybe. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And what you want to do is holding down shift, starting from the lights here, hold down shift and just drag it out. You have this real looking line here. And yeah, so what you want to do next is go to filter and we go to liquify here. Okay, and you probably can't see this here, but the line is right here. But let me go ahead and show you to you guys what I mean to do. I'm just go ahead and select red first so that you guys can see what I'm actually doing, and create that light here. As you can see, I'm gonna go inside of that light, actually Control Shift X for liquify tool, and as you can see that's the red light. And using the liquify tool, I hope you guys know how to use it. I'm just gonna liquify the light here, taking care not to mess with this portion right here, this side and this side. This randomly create some stuff. Hit OK here, and as you can see it created this random looking thing here. So basically what you want to do is kind of keep on doing this again and again. So let's go ahead and create another new layer with red. I'm going to go ahead and select my brush tool, and let's go ahead and create another line. I'm going to Control Shift X for liquify, and make sure you do it on separate layers, otherwise you're going to be liquefying one layer too many times. So I'm just going to go ahead and make some crazy stuff here. Hit OK, and there we have another one. So basically you just want to keep on doing this, and I'm going to be doing this off camera. Now you want to do the same thing for the whites. So we have the white here, hit Control Shift X here to bring up the white tool here. And I don't know if you can see this, but the white line is right here, and I have no idea how to change the setting in Photoshop because I'm not very good at that. But maybe there's a way to change the color of this background from white and gray to some like black, so you can see the white line brighter. But in your computer you'll barely be able to see it, but try to make use of it and create some wavy lines. So that's how you create wavy lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video here and I'm going to make some lines, and I'm going to be returning when it's done. Alright, so what I've done is I've created both these and put them in separate folders. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and select all of these 3 lights in the background. This is the front ones. Okay. You select all of these, right click, hit merge layers, and I'm going to hit what you want to do is hit Control J to duplicate this layer, and on the duplicated layer I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to blur it a little bit, like 3.5 pixels look good. Hit OK and change the transfer mode of this from normal to add linear dodge. That's going to make this look like it's glowing, and you're going to do the same thing for this one. So it's going to right click and merge all these layers. Right click, merge layers, and then hit Control J to duplicate it, go filter, Gaussian blur, and hit add here. Okay, so that's how we create that. Now you can see that these lights look like they've been faked, so you want to make it look more realistic. Now the way we do this actually is really simple actually. So let's go ahead and grab our whites, and I'm going to right click and merge layers. And I'm going to go ahead and create a clipping mask right over here using this button right here. Click on that and hit X to default your colors back, and then hit D default your colors, and then hit X to swap these, as you can see in here. So make sure black is in front here. Then grab your brush tool, increase the size of this brush to something big. Just go ahead and paint over it. So not that much, just a little, so that you just hide those edges right here with it. And you can do the same thing for the backs here. So take this, apply a clipping mask, and just go ahead and paint over it just a bit. There we go. And that is pretty much it. Now what you can do is add a Lamborghini Aventador logo here, and you're going to be pretty much done. But this tutorial is going on too long, so I'm going to cut that part out. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit the like button down below and subscribe to my channel. Share the video with your friends if you really like it. And be sure to tune in for new tutorials coming out soon. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to set up HDRIs in 3 Studio Max, and some more stuff that's coming up soon. So I'm going to be seeing you in my next video. Until then, goodbye and have a nice day.